Tell me when I should read this.
I am here.
Good, good.
All right, and Representative Wright, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to read this blurb that we have to guide us through this meeting. It's required. This is script for remote meeting. As acting chair and vice chair of Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body has authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical locations to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone and additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and select staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting by clicking on the following website address. It's zoom.us/I942380697990, or dialing one of the following phone numbers: 1-312-626-6799 or 1-929-205-6099. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. This information is printed in the House calendar. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are any problems. If anybody has a problem, call 271-3600 or email at H, C, S at ledge.newhampshire.us. D, adjourning the meeting of the public is unable to access the meeting. We will adjourn if they can't access it. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. I'd like to introduce the staff that are on the meeting assisting us. Bradley Greenland is the meeting host. Additional staff providing support are Jennifer Four and Joel Anderson. This is a work study session on bills referred to the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee for interim study. An executive session will follow. Copies of the interim study bills have been posted on the main page of the General Court website under the heading Remote Meetings. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Thank you. So Linda, I think you can take attendance now.
Yep. Okay. Rod?
Here.
If someone's in with you and all that good stuff. You home alone or?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're breaking up a little. I'm here and I'm alone.
Oh, I am? Okay. Pentelacus? I don't see her.
I don't see her either.
O'Hearn? Clerk, I'm here and I'm alone. Up to back?
Here and alone.
Bordenay?
Here, and my wife is in another room.
Muse,
Here and alone in the room.
Murphy,
Muted.
Representative Murphy, you're muted.
Muted.
you're muted, Nancy.
Still,
What?
am I still muted?
No.
You're good now.
Okay, I'm here and I'm home with 3 remote students, so not in the same room, but there may be some noise from the background.
Newman,
I'm here at home and my wife may enter the room intermittently.
Radishes 9. Swinburne, Welch,
I know he's here.
yes. Where?
Oh, looks like he's muted still.
David, you're muted. Oh yeah, I see him.
I'm here,
Okay.
and I'm alone.
Fields, Green, Testament, you're muted. You're muted.
Your shoulders back, honey.
Testament, you're muted.
You're in a C.
Okay.
It's your C there.
I'm here and my wife is in another room.
Okay. Wallace. Wallace. Not there. Okay. Abbas.
I am here. I'm alone in my office. My law partner is here, but he has his own office. My door is locked.
Roy.
Here, alone in the room.
And Cushing is absent.
So checking for privacy. Have you checked in? Are you on mute? So
So we have 11 present, and I believe that's a quorum. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. Then we can proceed.
Yes, you can.
Okay. There's just a couple of things I wanted to say that Rennie should be coming in. He's not here because he's had some medical issues this summer and he has a medical appointment this morning, but he is planning to jump in when he comes back. And that's one thing. And the other thing is today, what we're really doing is just going over the retained bills and making a decision about whether or not we should recommend future legislation. And we're not going into the heart of the bills or discussing them in a really deep or meaningful way. We're just going to discuss whether or not we recommend that they have future legislation. But even if we say they shouldn't have future legislation, people can put it in a bill. So it shouldn't be very complicated. And I would like to, after we talk briefly about the bills, I would accept a motion to go into executive session. Okay. Any questions? No. The first bill of 6 is House Bill 306, prohibiting the destruction of sexual assault evidence collection kits. Does anybody have any comments on that?
I would just start off by saying that unless and until we address the statute of limitations issue, this would seem to be putting the cart before the horse. If there's a statute of limitations on the charge itself, mandating that the kit be kept indefinitely doesn't seem to make any sense and puts an undue burden on the police departments to store rape kits indefinitely. So I think that this one might be a little too early.
Well, I think what happened in the last 2 years that we've been looking at this is that the Department of Justice has been doing an audit, and we were waiting for the results of that audit, and going to base our decision on that. I think the next session, people will have to see if that audit is finished and move forward accordingly. There are other issues that would go with that too, like having a building for storage for things that they're kept indefinitely.
Representative Rudd, do we have a sense of when that audit results we'll hear those, or?
Well, no, especially with COVID, I don't know, but I think in next session, somebody will want to look into that and pull the information together.
Are we supposed to raise our hand? How do we do this?
I guess if you could raise your hand virtually, just so we can keep track of an order. It should be on the participant list, and you should be able to see a raise hand feature at the bottom.
So you're recognized.
Thank you. I understand. Listen, if any offense is outside of the statute of limitations, the preservation of evidence for that case is, I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm all for storing the evidence for a longer period of time, but there has to be a justification for it. And, you know, I was in support of making the statute of limitations for, you know, sexual assault cases, you know, do not have one. But at the same time, if it's 20 years time barred, why would we ever exert money into saving that? I don't think we need an audit report to tell us that. Whatever the statute of limitations is, it should line up with how long we preserve the evidence at a minimum. I think that's it. You don't want to be destroying it before the statute of limitations. That wouldn't make any sense. If destruction of evidence, you know, that's counterproductive to what courts, police, and county attorneys do. So I think we can make the recommendation that whatever the statute of limitations is, this is what, you know, what they would keep. And there's also going to be some digital evidence. A lot of this stuff is still stored. The original is not there, but there will be, the DNA evidence is going to be put into a database. So there are civil cases, but at the same time, a individual, the government or the state should not be required to preserve evidence in a civil case. That's a private matter being brought privately.
Well, Darryl, the only thing we're deciding today is whether we recommend future legislation. We don't need to go into the guts of the bill because, you know, we don't have that. That's not what we're here for. And this bill is sort of half-baked. It hasn't come to, nobody's come to any conclusion. And we don't need to really discuss the details of the bill because we didn't do anything with the bill. And I think that whoever put in, the sponsors are going to want to pull it back in next year. So our job is to say, well, we think it should have future legislation or it should not. That's all we're doing today.
I think it's too soon to pursue this bill. We don't have the storage facility. There's a lot of unanswered questions. And frankly, I don't think it's ready for prime time.
Beth, can I make a clarification about,
sure,
or ask a question that you might be able to clarify?
Okay.
So we have this bill, the audit's not back. No, everybody's uncertain about what the time period is. So there are two things that can happen to this bill. Someone can just submit it, and what's the difference between somebody just submitting it and we coming to the conclusion that it's suitable, that it should be pursued to figure out those details? Does that have some bearing on the bill in some way?
No, it has no bearing on the bill. But if a person wanted to put in more legislation, they could say criminal justice recommended that it have, you know, future legislation. That's all. This is just a way of concluding our session. It has no bearing on the bill.
So it's kind
of
like
any changes.
It's kind of like an endorsement of that
yes.
type of bill if someone puts it in.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Representative Rod, Representative Murphy has her hand up.
You're recognized.
Muted. Muted. Muted.
You're muted, Nancy.
Sorry, I lost my whole screen. I just want to say I understand that this is merely more of a recommendation and really doesn't speak to the bill so much itself as whether or not we think it's worthy of reconsideration or submit the content is worthy of maybe a further legislation. I would support moving that forward, that we support that. You know, whether or not it passes, whether or not we have the information at a time when the bill is brought forward would be a whole different story and would be evaluated then. But if we're looking at you know, talking about statute of limitations on sexual assault itself, then I think this sort of would coincide with that. So I would hate to think we wouldn't recommend something that would keep evidence when we would be possibly considering, you know, reconsidering a statute of limitations on the crime. So I would support moving it forward for future consideration.
Thank you.
And Representative Muse has his hand up.
Representative Muse, you're recognized.
My understanding is that this, what we're doing today is really not what's deciding to move these particular bills forward the way they are, but it's more or less the concept of these bills. So during the hearing for this particular bill, we did hear testimony that there are problems with storing these materials. We also considered a separate bill a little bit later in the year that would have removed the statute of limitations on sexual assault crimes. We couldn't agree whether that should be a lifetime removal or whether we should put a number of years on it. But it seems pretty clear that conceptually we would want to save these rape kits, as Representative Abbas was saying, to line up with whatever we decide in the future. So conceptually, I mean, this seems to make sense. The devil's in the detail. Representative Murphy, that it does seem to make sense to move it forward.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, hearing no further questions or comments, we'll move to the second bill, which is House Bill.
Do we make a decision on this, or is there a vote, or what?
After we're finished going over these bills, then we'll have
we'll
accept a motion for an executive session.
Because it's a work session. I remember now.
Okay. The second bill is, no, that's not what it is. House Bill 306, prohibiting, I just did that.
No, just did 306.
Okay. We're on House Bill 722, an act relative to the retail sale and taxation of marijuana. On this bill, there's a ton of information here. Scott Wallace is not here today, is that correct?
No, he's not.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I'm just looking at the committee report. Apparently, some of the major players and stakeholders for this bill and the other marijuana bill that were going on were not heard at the hearings. And there is a tremendous amount of work and study that have gone on in both these bills. And I don't know, I think we probably should think about recommending it for future studies, since so much work has already been done on them, but all the stakeholders have not had the opportunity to participate. But
I would like to say that I think the one thing that is always left out is the impact on our youth. And I think it's a travesty to implement a bill like this without looking at the implications in that case.
Well, I think that's a good point, and certainly that should be part of whatever the next legislature decides to do with it.
And Representative Abbas has his hands up.
Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you. if I recall correctly, there was a lot of, for HB 41 was much different than this. And the real difference was the taxation side of it. So that's not something that our committee apparently is supposed to deal with. I don't like to punt down the hall, but this one involved the sales tax. So I guess if you think that's worthy of discussing the sales tax, I fundamentally don't think that's the way to go. And I would say that we can this one. Doesn't mean we can the issue of legalization of cannabis, but this one particularly was not something I was supportive of.
It's a fairly comprehensive bill, and certainly the recommendations for other areas to study in it, children or taxes, should definitely be considered. So I would think that the next legislature is going to deal with that. Marijuana is here to stay. It's legal in most of New England. So if we can focus on putting in a comprehensive bill in the next session, I think that somebody will do that.
So if you're happy with being another Massachusetts or another Vermont, go for it.
Representative Roy has his hand up.
Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just, for the record, I endorse the further study of this, but as far as the Criminal Justice Committee goes, whether or not marijuana is here to stay, it is in fact illegal in the entire United States federally. So I don't want us to send a message that we're flouting federal law by saying it's legal. Regardless of what we decide to do with it in the future, until it's changed federally, it's still a federal crime.
Right. Okay. Are there any other comments?
I'm not seeing any other hands up.
Okay, let's move on then. This is HB 1159, an act relative to cyberbullying, cyberstalking, and doxing of a public servant. I think we'd like to hear from the person most familiar with this. Representative Muse, would you like to speak to this bill?
Yes, my recommendation on this bill would be that we not recommend it for additional legislation. I think that part of the goal was for us to have a pretty good discussion about some of the behaviors that take place online. I think that there are real First Amendment issues when it comes to restricting the ability of people in the media to be able to report on certain things, regardless of whether we agree with what they report. We also have state laws that do cover things like criminal threatening. And my recommendation would be that we not recommend this for future legislation.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
And Representative Welch has his hand up.
You're recognized, Representative Welch.
Yes, I'd like to just tell the committee I agree 100% with Representative Muse.
Okay.
And he looks a little shocked, but no, I agree with him wholeheartedly.
How's the weather in San Francisco?
Not bad.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to add to this?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay, moving right along. HB 1283, an act relative to prohibiting the online disclosure of personally identifiable information. Representative Muse, you wrote the committee report. Would you like to address this one as well?
Yes, I think that this bill basically falls into the same category as the last one. We heard from people, from members of the New Hampshire Press Association during the hearing for the bill. I think that there were concerns about abridging First Amendment rights. To a large extent, people seem to be acting responsibly, and I think part of the issue with a bill like this is you have to cut a very, very fine line to avoid actual abridgment of people's First Amendment rights and the rights of the media to publish legitimate information. I think the privacy question is something that we always are going to need to keep looking at. I think we'll probably see bills like this again in the future. I don't think that this is something that I would support moving forward in the next legislature, especially knowing everything we're going to be facing in the next legislature. So I would not support moving this forward.
And Representative Welch has his hand up.
Yes, again, I agree with Representative Muse. That's twice now.
That's shocking.
So, well, no, he makes a good point, and I agree with him.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments?
I'm not seeing any more hands.
Good. This is, I believe, our last bill is House Bill 1663, an act relative to the legalization and regulation of cannabis and making appropriations therefore. It's like the other marijuana bill, this is more additional information and ideas about marijuana. Does anybody have any thoughts about it?
Like Representative Roy, we're basically trying to legalize a federal issue. And I understand the belief that we ought to do this because there are other states that do it, everybody's doing it, why don't we do it? That's not a reason for passing a law.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
I would just add that going forward next year, it looks like we're going to have a huge hole in the state budget. We're going to need to get creative when it comes to filling that hole. So far, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to fill it with any money coming from the federal government. And some of the projections that I've seen are pretty terrifying. So in the last section, we legalized sports betting. We've got some revenue coming in there. This is an area that I think we need to seriously look at. And when it comes to federal legislation, the federal legislation could very well catch up to this during our next session. So to have something like this in progress, given the fiscal condition of the state and given what could happen at the federal level, to me seems to be a pretty prudent thing to do.
I would point out that back in 2010, we were facing an $800 million budget, higher budget than we had money for. And the legislature found a way to get around that.
And we cut mental health, we cut education, we basically cut almost totally indiscriminately. Recognizing the fact that we are going to have to make some cuts, and I think those are going to be hard on everybody. Whatever we can do to bring new revenue into the state in a way that, as much as we possibly can, protects kids and protects minors and protects people who shouldn't have access to this stuff. I think we need to be doing it. This is an adult. This is a thing that I think adults in this state have been advocating for years. It's something that other states do. And for us to keep burying our heads in the sand when every other state around us has a law like this doesn't seem to make a huge amount of sense. So again, we're not here to debate the merits of it, but that's just the way I feel.
And Representative Rod, it looks like Representatives Welch, Newman, and Abbas have their hands raised.
Representative Welch.
Well, this is an area where I disagree with Representative Muse. I think that when you start collecting revenue from a source like marijuana, which is going to affect all our youth and many of our other citizens one way or another, I just don't think it's a good thing to do. And I have supported the marijuana laws that we have. I don't support making an industry out of it.
Thank you. Representative Muse? I mean, no, was that Representative?
It was Representatives Newman and then Representative Abbas.
Okay, Representative Newman, you're recognized.
Yeah, I just have a comment. It's not on this bill. I had another bill on our list, 1586. I just wonder if that's going to come up next, and I'll stop. Thank you.
We're only doing 4, if I remember, right?
I believe 1586 is on that list.
Is it?
I think it was on a list that I saw previously. I don't know whether we're going to do that today or not. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
So when we have a moment, I really need to back up because I couldn't find the sheet that I got yesterday. And I just realized that in the work session, I actually have to put if we're recommending future or not. And then also the person there's the first person to move that recommendation and a second person and a vote. Now that's the work session. And the executive, I know what you're going to say because I said the same thing. The executive session basically says the same thing, but I'm not sure why they sent me, both sheets look the same.
Well, I think we could have done the executive session at the same time, but we just decided not to. And so that would be, that will happen after this session.
Okay.
And then
I won't worry
there'll only be one committee meeting. There won't be a majority minority report. There'll just be the majority report. And whoever makes that motion should get that to us as soon as possible.
All righty.
Okay. So are we finished with that bill?
It looks like Representative Abbas also has his hand raised.
Okay.
So.
Representative Abbas?
Thank you.
You recognized.
So just, again, I guess we're not going to get into the merits of this one, but I agree that there are going to be some revenue shortfalls. I thought that this one particularly involved cannabis being sold out of the state liquor stores or in the same fashion. So when I think what we want to do is definitely put forward the idea that we want to talk about if we're going to legalize cannabis. Even for someone like myself who's opposed it, I always thought this was the best revenue option for the state. So I think that this, as a state, we should put that forward to study that if we're going to do it, how do we do it, and how do we maximize the state revenue? So.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else?
Not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay.
And Representative Rubb, did you want to do the work session for House Bill 1586 as well?
Yes, we'll move on to House Bill 1586 relative to the statute of limitations for sexual assault. Does anybody have a comment on that?
Not seeing any.
We never got to a point where we would decide that there would be no statute of limitations or we would increase it. So as my feeling is that this is something that we should recommend for legislation next year as a continuation of the work that's been done this term.
What did the study come up with?
I'm sorry?
What did the study committee come up with?
Well, we put it into interim study, but we didn't study it because of the COVID. So it probably needs further work with the next session.
Okay, that's it.
And Representatives Murphy and Hughes have their hands raised.
Okay, Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I absolutely support moving this legislation forward. I think it's very important to the many victims of sexual assault A statute of limitations deprives them of given what we know of memory and situational difficulties that victims have. I absolutely think that this is really important legislation. It should definitely be recommended to go forward. I would absolutely support that.
Thank you. Who else had their hand up?
Representative Muse.
Muse, thank you. You're recognized, Representative Muse.
This is something that the county attorneys were also very supportive of. I think we had 3 of them who actually showed up at a public hearing, which is, I think, the most I think I've ever seen show up at any public hearing. So I think there's support for this in the law enforcement community. And one of the things that they told us that really stuck with me was that even though things can happen to evidence and witnesses can pass away and things like that, in the end, for them to be able to prosecute one of these cases, they still have to be able to make a case regardless of what the statute of limitations is. I think during our debate, we got a little bit wrapped around the axle around should it be unlimited, or should we try to put a 15-year cap or 20-year or 25-year cap? And I think those were some of the things that we were going to try to study. But I think definitely in the next session of the legislature, doing something with this should be a priority for the reasons that Representative Murphy so articulately stated just a few minutes ago.
Any other comments?
Thank you. Representative Abbas has his hand up.
Representative Abbas, you're recognized.
Thank you. Representative Murphy and Representative Muse took all the good material, but I agree with what they have to say. And I just want, for what we recommend, I mean, do we just give a thumbs up, thumbs down? I think the biggest opposition this bill had was, he said, she said 40 years later, and I get that. And we could always consider when there's physical evidence available, if it's stored electronically, does it really matter how old it is? I mean, the reason why you have a SOL is when evidence and witnesses disappeared, pass away, or evidence it goes stale. But I think we can, in the digital age that we're in, that's not as much of a problem as it was 20, 30 years ago.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment on this?
Not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay, I think that concludes our work session. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
Second.
And Representative Rod.
Who's the second person?
And Representative Rod, you'd have to vote on that motion as well.
Am I seconding the motion? I second it.
Well, then the first one was Welch. Is
yes.
that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And Representative Rudd, it's my understanding that you'd have to vote on that to go into the executive session as well.
Yes.
Or you could declare that you're going to executive session.
I'm going to take up. Let's take up executive session. I think motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session. Yes.
Yes.
So we can then move into executive session.
I have a question. Are there any of the public on the line at this time? And do they have anything to say?
In executive session, the public is not invited to
no,
speak.
I mean prior to this. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late. But I'm assuming they had no comment or weren't on or what?
Well, nobody raised their hand.
Right.
That's not true.
It looks like we have someone in attendees that does have their hand raised at the moment.
Well, now we've already made and seconded a motion to go into executive session. So how does that work?
Yeah, we're already in executive session. That would be out of order to take comments now.
Is it, since we're in executive session, then
I have a question.
We're in the voting mode, and it's inappropriate to do anything unless we finish what was started. We got a motion and a second, and we should vote.
Yeah, and that's the correct, Representative Welsh. You would need to vote on that motion to go into executive session.
We need a roll call.
We actually already did, but you're right, we do need a roll call for everything. Sorry.
And Representative Broad, it looks like Representatives Newman and Abbas have their hand raised as well.
Can you guys just raise your hand like that? And then she can see. It's easier, geez.
Representative Testerman.
Aye.
Are we voting?
And Representative Broad,
Wait a minute, what are we doing here?
Representatives
taking...
Representatives Newman and Abbas have their hands raised.
I thought we were still in the comment period before the vote. Maybe I'm...
No,
okay.
We're already in voting mode. We're not commenting anymore. We're taking a roll call to see if people want to go into executive session. So if the clerk would start the roll call again, we can get through that.
With the executive session. Oh. Rod?
Yes.
Pantelakis is out. Absent. O'Hearn. Absent. Clerk, yes. Updebeck?
Yes.
Bourdonnais?
Yes.
Muse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Reddish 9 is out. Swinburne out. Welch?
Yes.
Fields? Out. Green? Out. Testament?
Yes.
Wallace? Out. Abbas?
No.
And Roy?
Yes.
So it's 10-1, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with the first bill. Should we recommend for future legislation or not? House Bill 306, prohibiting the destruction of sexual assault evidence collection kits. And that would be a roll call vote.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, you would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend for future legislation.
Representative Newman has his hand raised.
Representative Newman?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Yes. What is your question?
Yeah, I think our last vote was to go into an executive session. Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was confused. I'll stop now.
Okay. So I made a motion. It was seconded to go into to recommend for future legislation. House Bill 306.
I didn't get the second.
Opterbeck.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Grandpa, just let you know, Smelly's in a crate. I did take her out.
I understand that.
Okay. No one else. There's no one in there. I know. I don't think so.
No.
So are we doing a?
Yeah, we would need to do a roll call vote.
Yep.
The motion is motion is to recommend for future legislation. House Bill 306.
Yep. Okay. You ready?
And
Yes.
Representative Bourdonnais has his hand raised.
Oh.
Thank you.
Representative Bourdonnais.
Thank you. I have one comment, and that is that if this, we recommend this to go forward, we should make sure that the physical note on it, because either state or local law enforcement have.
All right. That would be something that you deal with in the next session. So can we start the vote?
Rod.
Yes.
Pantelak is absent. O'Hearn absent. Clerk, yes. Optebeck.
Yes.
Bourdonnais.
Yes.
Muse.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Radishisnon absent. Swinburne absent. Welch.
No.
Fields absent. Green absent. Testament.
No.
Wallace absent. Abbas.
Yes.
Roy.
No.
That's 3. 8-3.
Okay. I'll be writing the committee report for that. The next bill is House Bill 722 relative to the retail sale and taxation of marijuana. Would anybody like to make a motion?
All right. You have to wait for the clerk. So which bill are we on now?
House Bill 722 relative to the retail sale and taxation of marijuana.
Okay.
Representative Muse, do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I will. I'd recommend this for future legislation.
Okay. Will you take a roll call vote on
And
this?
it looks like Representative Murphy has her hand raised.
Second.
Representative Murphy has her hand raised.
All right. Yes, Representative Murphy, you're recognized.
Muted.
I was just going to second.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. Rod.
Yes.
Pantelak is absent. O'Hearn absent. Clerk, yes. Optebeck.
Yes.
Bourdonnais.
Yes.
Muse.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Radishisnon absent. Swinburne. Welch.
No.
Field absent. Green absent. Testament.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Wallace absent. Abbas.
No.
Roy.
No.
7-4.
Okay. Okay. The next bill is House Bill 1159 relative to cyberbullying, cyberstalking, and doxing of a public servant. Would anybody like to make a recommendation?
I would like to make a motion that we do not recommend this bill for future legislation.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Who was number one?
Muse.
I think I was, but that's all right.
Oh, so is it Welch and Muse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Welch and Muse. Right. This is not for future legislation, is the motion before us.
On 1159, correct? Okay, I'm ready if you are.
1159, yep.
Okay. So, Rod?
Yes.
Clerk, yes. Alphabet?
Yes.
Bourdonnais?
Yes.
Muse?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Welch?
Yes.
Testament?
Yes.
Wallace? Oops, forgot. Absent. Abbas?
Yes.
And Roy?
Yes.
11-0.
So, David, would you send me something on this for the committee report, please?
David Muse or David Welch?
Oh, I think Muse.
All right. Then I need to change that. So who's going to do it? So I'll know.
I can do it. I have a blurb prepared.
All right. So I'll change that and make Muse first. Okay.
Okay. Okay, the next bill is HB 1283 relative to prohibiting the online disclosure of personally identifiable information. And nobody wants to write reports.
And Representative Muse has his hand raised.
Representative Muse?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we do not recommend this bill for future legislation.
All right.
I'll second
I'll
that.
second.
Oh, okay. Who's on the second then? We all said second at the same time.
Harriet Gathright.
Okay.
Okay. Rod?
Yes.
Clerk, yes. Opteback?
Yes.
Bourdonnais?
Yes.
Muse?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Newman? Newman?
Is he
You're
muted?
muted.
Oh,
You're
he's
muted. He's muted.
Yes.
Welch?
Yes.
Testament?
Yes.
Abbott?
Yes.
Roy?
Yes.
11-0.
All right. The next bill, which I put out of order before, is House Bill 1586 relative to the statute of limitations for sexual assault. I would make a recommendation that it be referred for future legislation.
Second.
I'll second.
So it's Rod and Murphy?
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Rod?
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Updike?
Yes.
Bourdonnais?
Yes.
Muse?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Welch?
Yes.
Testament?
Yes.
Abbas?
Yes.
And Roy?
No.
10-1. Ready when you are. Is that it?
Okay. Where are we?
We're on House Bill 1663.
Okay. I'll recommend for future legislation. Second?
Second.
Who's that?
Representative
Opterbeck.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a roll call.
Yeah. Rod?
Yes.
Clerk is yes. Updike?
Yes.
Bourdonnais?
Yes.
Muse? Muse?
Is he muted?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, he is.
Sorry.
Murphy?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Welch?
No.
Testament?
No.
Abbas?
No.
Roy?
No.
Oh, sure.
7-4.
Okay. I believe that's it.
Yes, that's all of them.
And that was
So-
recommended for future legislation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot to check it after that. Okay.
So Representative Muse, if you could give me a little report on future legislation for 722 and also for 1159 and sorry, 1283.
And how soon do you need those, Beth?
As soon as you can get them.
Okay. That's clear.
I mean, right now. Right now.
Okay. I'll start working on them as soon as we're over.
Okay. Thank you. I think that concludes our business for the day. So people can go off to archery or the beach or whatever good things we have for the rest of the day. And tomorrow will be my last day with the legislature. And I want to say what a pleasure it's been working with all of you. And it's been an awful lot of fun. So I guess we'll all see each other tomorrow and wish you all good luck in your
Thank you, Beth.
races.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Beth, I just have a question. Did you make a mention earlier of an executive session?
We just had the executive session.
Okay, never mind. Forget it. I was thinking of something else, a different type of session. Thank you.
Oh, because I'm floating in an alternative universe. Yeah. We did our work today. We did good. So good luck to everybody in your races who's running, and I'll see you all tomorrow.
Take care, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.